Hello everyone, Reginald Scott here. Welcome to the video. Thank you for clicking on it. I really do appreciate it. And if you could do me another massive favor, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for future videos, and of course share with a friend. And comments are going to be, I think, quite enlightening and interesting today because we are assessing a video done by Hambini where he serviced his bicycle. I came across a forum where people were debating the pros and cons of the man, saying whether they thought he was good or bad, and somebody linked this video as evidence, and they said, you know, this guy doesn't know what the heck he's doing, and they, as I say, posted this video as evidence. There you go. So let's have a look at this video now. One thing that has caught my eye before we begin, right, straight away, and I've only just noticed this. This is right at the beginning of the video. We're like 3 seconds in. Look at his front brake, okay? Look at the direction the front brake is mounted in. Can you see that? The screw, the small set screw that holds in the brake pad, is at the front of the brake. That should be at the rear. That brake is mounted backwards. So that means that when he brakes hard, the brake pad, instead of pushing against the stop at the end of the brake shoe, the brake pad is trying to push its way out of the shoe. That one's on backwards. Where are we? Ah, here we go, look. So this is not Dura Ace like his, this is 105 or something. But look, there you go, look, the set screw is at the back, and the flat side of that little curved flange is at the front. Okay, his is the opposite way around. Mr. Hambini has definitely got his brake pads on backwards, and that is dangerous. That potentially can cause an accident if you brake too hard. Interesting. So let's fast forward to the bit where he actually starts doing his maintenance. Skip the introduction. Right, about here, I think.
Before you do anything, if you ride your bike in winter, it's a good idea for you to get some penetrating fluid like this GT85 and just spray it everywhere. Alright,
I'll start there then. Okay, so straight away, I see problems here as a bike mechanic. This is a good indication to me that this bike is not well maintained, not well serviced, and needs some serious work. You see here where the Di2 mount is, the little strap here that goes over the stem. You see this white powdery substance everywhere in the pitting, and then you can see the same white powdery substance here under this carbon collar or carbon spacer. You can see white powder here where the screw holes are. You can see it under the rubber bung here. All of that is corrosion. All of that is aluminium oxidization and corrosion. Okay, that's a bad sign. You should not be allowing, if you guys at home, okay, pay heed to this advice, you should not be allowing this to happen to your bike. If this is happening, it's because you are letting the bike stay wet and salty. Okay, it could be salt from your sweat, or it could be salt from the road. If you ride in the UK, there's a lot of salt put on the roads, for example. So this indicates to me you are not washing your bike regularly enough. If you were to wash your bike once a week, you would not get this problem, okay? Because the salt and the acids from your skin would not be building up and eating away at your aluminium components. At least his top cap is fairly straight. Look, he's got his logos nicely lined up, which I like. Well, it's slightly off center, slightly off, but it's fairly well lined up. As a bike mechanic, I like to see that. I like to see logos lined up. Right. So now he's going to cover everything in GT85.
Do anything, if you ride your bike in winter, it's a good idea for you to get some penetrating fluid like this GT85 and just spray it everywhere.
Right, okay. I don't quite understand that. You know, it's going to make a bit of a mess. It's going to make handling and working on the bike right now a bit of a mess, and it's going to get all over your hands. So me personally, I probably wouldn't have done it like that. But what I'm surprised about is his statement. Let's have a listen to his statement again, because it's a little bit confusing.
And just spray it. If if you ride your bike in winter, it's a good idea for you to get some penetrating fluid like this GT85 and just spray it everywhere.
Right, so if you ride in winter, spray GT85 all over your bike. I don't know about that one. Is he saying that is to prevent corrosion and rusting when you're riding? So you spray your bike down with GT85 before you go for a ride, and then that prevents water penetration and rusting? Or is he suggesting that because he rides in winter and everything is already seized up and completely corroded, that it's a good idea to spray everything down with GT85? I'm not sure what he's actually telling us there. I kind of disagree with both statements, but we'll continue.
Next, we need to loosen our two stem bolts, which are here and here. Should only need to do it
Struggling to get that in a bit.
probably about one turn each. Don't need to take them out completely.
Okay, there's a couple of things going on here. Firstly, he's suggesting not to loosen the bolts fully. He only did like half a turn or something for the top bolt there.
Bolts, which are here and here. Should only need to do it probably about one turn.
That was very little. Okay, he undid that very little. So the thing with that is there's still going to be a lot of side pressure on that clamp because he hasn't fully loosened the bolt, which means getting the stem off is going to be a little bit difficult. Me personally, I would remove both those bolts. You can see there's corrosion and rusting on those bolts already. Even after he sprayed GT85 on them, you can still see the top of the bolt there where he's putting his tool is orange. So it's rusting. I would remove those bolts, have a table or a desk or something if you're at home, lay out some kitchen paper onto the desk or table and place the bolts on top of the kitchen paper so you don't lose them. Okay, so there's a nice white background to put the bolts on. That's how I do it. And then I would make sure that before putting those bolts back, I cleaned them really well. I want to clean off any salts or corrosion or anything on those bolts. He's really struggling to get that tool in there. It's going to round off the head if he's not careful. Right, that's nasty. Okay, straight away again. Goodness me. You can see he's got his ratchet wrench or his socket wrench resting against the top tube of the frame. And he's driving the screw out, well, he's unscrewing the screw against the frame. So if there's any grit or anything on the frame or on the top of his socket wrench, he's just grinding that grit into the frame. As a bike mechanic, you working on other people's bikes, I would not do this because it could lead to damage to their frame or their paint. So I would just turn the handlebar so that the wheel is pointing forward. So that the tool is offset, it's off the side of the frame, just so that I can fully rotate the handle of the tool as well, so I don't collide with the frame. It doesn't make any sense why he's doing it this way. And so yeah, that's kind of just cack-handed and bad. But he really struggles to get his tool into the head of the bolt. Me, again, personally, if you're concerned about rounding the heads off your bolts, put the tool in with your fingers. Just disconnect the socket there. Put it in first, make sure it's well seated with your fingers so you're not applying any torque, and then connect the socket set to it, or the wrench to it, so that you know that you've definitely got good purchase on the bolt before you start tightening or unscrewing. It's just a safety precaution, really. Look at that. He's right against the frame there. Look,
Now I need to remove the...
Look, watch. His tool is stuck against the frame. He's wedged the tool, because this tool, right, the head on this tool is fatter at the top than it is on the side. So when he went in, the tool was angled down, so there was still a little bit of give, or there was still a little bit of gap between the tool and the top of the frame. But then he turned the tool so that the fatter part of the head is now pressing against the frame, which has wedged the tool against against the frame, and he's got his bit stuck in the bolt there, and he has to disconnect his tool to get it out. See? Did you see that just before he transitioned to a woman? Look, see? The tool is stuck in the bike, and he's had to disconnect the socket set. Don't do that. That's putting enormous pressure on the bolt.
The top screw cover from the top nut.
Look how corroded that is. Oh my word. Totally rusted.
Now we need to remove the compression screw.
Right, that was very loose. Look how loose that was. Took absolutely no effort to undo. And again, look, I know it's loose and everything, but
now we need to remove the compression screw.
The tool is not even fully inserted. Look, you can see the line there. The rusty line where that tool can go down inside that head. He's doing it at an angle, undoing it. If you're going to do that, remove the tool again from the wrench and just use the socket if you want to use it like that. You don't, clearly this has got absolutely no tension on it whatsoever. It's completely loose, which it shouldn't be. Okay, this is interesting. That bolt and that top cap there, I'm guessing the top cap's made of aluminium, is totally bonded together. You can see that they're moving in unison. That shouldn't be the case. That screw or bolt should be totally independent of that head. When he undoes this, that bolt should just come out on its own, and it should leave the top cap behind for you to remove separately. So, loads of corrosion in there. Loads of corrosion. That needs washing out, cleaning, re-greasing. Put a bit of grease in there, prevent that from happening in the future. We'll see if he does that later.
And we need to remove the compression nut.
Hang on a minute. Let's have a look at that again.
Then we need to remove the compression nut.
Right, do you see that? That's the top of the compression plug, right? That goes inside the steerer tube and pushes against the wall of the steerer so that when you clamp your stem onto the carbon steerer, it doesn't crush the steerer. That's what the compression plug is there for. That is why you should always get a nice, deep, solid compression plug in your bike. Even on my lightweight bike, I do not have one of those skimpy little compression plugs. I have a full-length compression plug. It is something you do not want to skimp on. But what we're seeing here is that as he rotates his tool, the plug is just spinning on the spot. This outer ring of the plug here should not be turning like that. Only the screw in the middle should be loosening, and then once the screw in the middle is loose, not fully taken out but just loose, you can pull the whole compression plug out. What we see here is either the bolt in the center of the compression plug is completely seized, and so the thing is just rotating, or there was absolutely no tension on this plug. So he may have had this plug out already, off camera, or he had no tension on that plug, which means the plug's not really pushing against the inside wall of the steerer, which means it's not really doing its job. You can see it's just rotating instantly. There's no tension on it whatsoever. Look.
To
there we go. Look.
The compression
see?
nut.
It's just spinning. There's no tension on that. Why are you still turning that? It's clearly got nothing on it. And then there you go.
And the compression plug comes out. If you haven't already, you need to disconnect your front brake cable. If you need to know how to do that, please check out one of my other videos on Shimano front brake overhaul.
Bar tape's a bit of a mess. You know, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, this is not good. So what we've got here is the front wheel is still in the bike. And now you've disconnected that brake cable. That brake cable there, for me, when I'm doing this kind of service, is a safety feature. I keep that brake cable connected so that if I accidentally drop the fork out the frame, something is there to stop the fork from hitting the floor. You don't leave the front wheel in the frame, because when you spray the frame with your GT85 or whatever other chemicals you're using, all that's going to splash down onto your rims, contaminate your rim brakes, contaminate your tires. You don't want that there. Plus the fact that wheel is adding weight to the fork, so it's pulling on the fork. Again, you don't want that there. So disconnect the front wheel, put it to one side out of the way, remove the brake pads as well. If you're going to be spraying around stuff like GT85 or penetrating oils, remove the brake pads. Don't contaminate your brake pads. Same if you're using disc brakes. Get the brake pads out of there just to prevent any cross-contamination that's going to ruin your braking. I also just noticed, I glossed over this earlier and I didn't think about it, but he's clamping his frame. This is a carbon frame. Now, you will see me clamp my frame because I've got a tie bike and I've got a steel bike, so it's not really an issue. And you can indeed clamp a frame if you are working on it. I think it's okay to clamp a carbon frame as long as you're very careful about the way you do it. I do have a video on this. I'll leave it in the description below. But with the kind of stuff that he's probably going to be doing with this headset, I would steer clear of clamping the frame. Way better to clamp the seat post. So, yeah. Number 1, I wouldn't disconnect the brake at this point, and number 2, I wouldn't clamp the frame, and number 3, I would remove the wheel, and number 4, I'd probably remove the rim brakes as well, especially if I'm going to be spraying the pads, especially if I'm going to be spraying GT85 everywhere.
To remove the stem from the fork, so hold the fork at the bottom and then pull the stem off. You might have to use a rotating motion to do this.
You can see how stiff that is because he hasn't undone the bolts far enough. Undo the bolts and you might stand a chance of pulling the thing off. I don't know why you do it like that. Look at the scratches as well that he's put in the steering
Now
tube.
rest your handlebars to one side. Try not to strain any of the wires, especially any Di2 wires or brake cables.
Better thing to do then is to disconnect the Di2. It's just a junction box right under there, under the stem. Just disconnect the wire. It's easier to disconnect than run the risk of pulling it. We can now see that the frame has slipped backwards and he's now clamping way towards the front of the bike, which means all the weight of the rear end of the bike, which is the heaviest part of the bike, where all the gears and components are, is now pulling against the frame. So, you know, that's even worse for the top tube there. It's basically one long lever now, and it's all levering against this section of the carbon frame. So really bad for the carbon there. And he's resting his handlebar, his aluminium stem, which is covered in grit and all sorts, against his frame. Again, not something I would do to somebody else's bike as a bike mechanic. Not even something I would do to my own bike. Try and tie wrap or cable tie that thing away from the frame. Or use some string or something. Just get it away from the frame so you're not rubbing. Because every time you move the bike, that's going to rub against the frame and damage your paint job. So there you go.
Remove this top cap, which is on top of our headset.
That looks very corroded.
A bit tight, and it might require the use of a screwdriver just to pry it up.
No, don't do that. Because what you're doing there is you're levering against the carbon frame. Every time you drive that screwdriver in and twist it, the edge of the blade potentially goes into the side of the frame. Once you've got it way under, you can use the top of the bearing like he's doing now. But that is not the best way to get that off there. You're going to end up scratching something or damaging something. Plus the fact the lips of the top cap there can be rubber. You can damage those.
Now we need to push the fork all the way through so we can release this top bearing.
I'm sorry I keep stopping this. But there's just too much to talk about.
Cloth and a mallet.
Right, Hambini's favourite tool, the hammer or mallet. Okay, if you're going to do this, use a soft hammer, like a rubber mallet, rather than a wooden one. Wooden one is still too hard to hit carbon. Yeah, he's put a rag on top, but he's only put one thin piece of rag on the top to protect his steerer. That steerer is still going to suffer from too much impact from doing this. And he's still got his wheel inside the frame. And he's disconnected the brake. What's stopping this wheel and fork dropping straight out the frame and hitting the floor? If this is stuck in there with corrosion, okay, so it's tight, and you start hammering away at it with your mallet, it could potentially just come shooting out the bottom of the frame, and then your carbon fork is going to clatter onto your concrete floor. So in your garage, which is where he is. Bad idea. Number 1, don't connect the brake yet. Wait till you've got the fork out or loose. Or don't even disconnect the brake at all. Just you can leave the fork hanging off the brake line. It's not really going to damage the brake line. And certainly, if you can avoid it, don't be hitting the carbon steerer with anything if you can avoid it. And if you do hit it with something, use a rubber mallet, not a wooden mallet. And, or more cloth. Use way more cloth than that. Got to produce more padding there. But bad move. Come on. Are we back to this again? We're back to the hammering again. Yeah, I want a carbon expert on here. Is this the way to treat a carbon steerer? That's bottomed out. That's bottomed out. Stop hitting it. Now, give it a good old... Ooh. Shake and rattle.
Remove the collet and put it to one side.
Okay, if you're going to do that... Alright, I'll give you one piece of advice. I gotta go. I'll be back in a minute. But I'll give you one piece of advice. If the steerer tube is stuck in the frame like this because of rust and corrosion, you can see it in this picture. A better way to do this is with warm water. Okay, so either take the bike outside, hang it up, take the frame, take the wheel out the back of the frame as well so it's lighter. Go hang it up somewhere. Boil the kettle. Don't use the boiling water. Just let it cool down, or add cold water to it in a bucket or something, or a watering can. So you've got warm water, not verging on hot, you know, around like 40 degrees, something like that. 40 degrees Celsius should be fine. And pour that onto the headset. Now, you're going to replace the headset anyway, so don't worry about water coming into the headset. Tilt the bike forward as well, so the water doesn't run into the back of the frame, so the water runs out the headset. And just pour warm water around it. Because what you'll do is you'll wash away a lot of this dirt, you'll wash away a lot of the rust, you'll wash away a lot of the contamination and corrosion, and that will free up that steerer tube. Also, by warming the metal rings, like that compression ring there, the collet that he called it, and the bearings themselves, they'll expand slightly and they'll release the carbon steerer tube. Okay, because they will expand at a different rate to the carbon steerer tube. So that's a much more gentle way of doing it, and you'll find that the fault will just come straight out. At this stage, if you don't want to do that, this is where your penetrating oil would be good. So you can spray your penetrating oil in again and walk away from it for a bit, come back, give it another penetrating spray, and then try and pull the fork out, give it a little tug, see if it'll come out. And then if you really want to hurry things up, you can use the rubber mallet. But don't just wail on it with a wooden mallet. Right, I gotta go. I've got to go pick my daughter up from school on the bike. So I'll be back in a minute, and I shall continue with this video. Right, let's carry on with this video. It's been fun so far.
The fork came out with the bottom bearing attached to it. Unfortunately,
still got the wheel in there.
The top bearing is actually seized into the frame, so I need to figure out a way of getting that out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this freezing spray, Loctite freeze and release. Spray a bit of that on, leave it for 5 minutes, and then come back. So in the process of trying to get this top bearing out, it just fell to bits in my hand. You can probably hear the ball bearings going everywhere. The seals came out and the top cap came out.
So it might be true that he, tried to pull the thing out and it just fell apart. Or he stuck his screwdriver in the gap between the two races by accident and then levered the bearing apart, which left the bearing stuck in the frame. How's it going to get that out?
If you do find it is stuck, you can just put a screwdriver under one end and actually lever it out. It does eventually come out.
Okay,
one
so
end and actually...
he's using the blade of the screwdriver and he's levering against the cup, the bearing cup on the headset, on the head tube. If that's carbon fiber, that's going to gouge your carbon fiber head tube, isn't it? Not the best way to get that out. If you want to use a screwdriver, use a long screwdriver, come up from underneath, place the blade of the screwdriver right on the edge of that metal ring, and then tap it from underneath with a mallet or anything, a block of wood, just to tap it loose. That way, your screwdriver is not impacting against the frame, it's impacting only against the metal ring. You could also use a bearing puller to remove this, potentially. If you've got a bearing puller with a big enough a head on it.
New bearing.
Bearing crown.
It is slightly beveled, and the bevel should face upwards. Put that on.
Is that dry?
Now put the fork back into the bike.
There we go. Whacking the frame with his stem.
Leave it to rest on something.
Oh, just leave it like that. Okay.
Put the top bearing.
just leave it hanging there. Nothing possibly bad can happen with that. It's not like you're going to turn around to reach for something on your table, bump it with your backside, and then the whole thing's going to come clattering to the floor. That's not going to happen. Just leave it hanging there, like with good wishes and pixie dust. That's fine. Me personally, I would not do that. I would not put that back in until I'm ready to reattach the stem, so at least I've got something holding it in place. And I certainly wouldn't leave it hanging there with the full weight of the wheel on it as well, because again, that wants to fall out right now, and the only thing holding it in there is the friction between the carbon steerer tube and the edge of the carbon headset race. So, you know, if you're leaning against an edge of a carbon race, potentially there's possibility for damage as well. So that is a really bad idea. Don't do that.
Top bearing in. Make sure the seat, which is this area here, is clean.
Okay.
The bevel side should face downwards.
But dry.
Now, once the fork is through and the bearing is down, we need to get the split thrust collar.
No grease at all. So you're going to rest a metal component, e.g. steel, against a raw carbon fiber cup, and then you're going to put an aluminium ring in the top, which is what that thing is there. That's going to rust. It might be the reason why your headset looked like this earlier. That could have been prevented by using, I don't know, a little bit of grease. Why wouldn't you use grease? Everybody puts grease in there. All mechanics would put grease in that. A nice waterproof grease in there. Just create a barrier between the two materials. Stop everything from rusting. Stop everything from seizing up.
Handlebars back onto
So everything just completely dry.
the steerer tube.
Okay, it's your funeral. Look how tight that is. Come on, loosen those screws. You're still not taking the screws out. The screws are still dirty and rusty.
This next step is very important because we need to remove any wobble from the bearings and any slack. So what you have to do is you have to push really, really hard and just make sure you have no play whatsoever in the steering. Once you've done that, we're ready to place our...
That is not how you remove play from the steering. You remove play from the steering with the top cap. Okay, the top cap pulling against the compression plug pulls the two sides, the fork and the stem, together, basically pushing the bearings together and basically reducing any play within the system. Just pushing from the bottom doesn't really do anything at this stage. It's a bit of a futile exercise. Very odd. It shows a lack of understanding of how the system works. Okay.
And then replace any spacers that you may have had.
Well, at least that's tight now.
Now we need to reinstall the top cap.
Again, no grease, nothing. On that, I would generally use some Morgan Blue Aquaproof grease. Just smear a bit of Morgan Blue on the threads, just so that it doesn't seize into the top cap, the compression plug, sorry. So yeah, get a little bit of grease on there. You can use copper grease as well, calcium grease, lithium grease, basically any grease that you've got. Just put a bit of grease on there. You don't have to go crazy. Just prevent those two surfaces, those two dry metal surfaces, from bonding together. And as you can see, like I mentioned before, the top cap is still well and truly welded to that screw, which is really bad because you want that screw to be independent from the cap. You want the thing to be able to turn freely inside the cap as it screws down and it pulls the two halves of the bearing unit together. So he should have knocked that off there and cleaned it. Little smear of grease into the recess at the top there. Again, Morgan Blue, Aquaproof, calcium grease, it's fine. Lithium grease, whatever you want to use. You're not going to hurt anything. Smear a bit of grease in there, around the edge of the screw basically, and then tighten it. Ooh.
That's complete. You need to retighten.
My eyes hurt after watching that. My eyes are literally watering. That was painful to watch. We hit the point at which the top cap stops, which is there. Right, you hear that sound? That straining, whining sound coming from the headset? That is an indication that you've already tightened this too much. That's like, it's complaining. It's probably because it's also dry. Everything's dry, so it's going to squeak. But stop. Now is a good time to stop. All you're doing with that preload screw is you're just, as I say, pulling everything together. Don't overload that screw, because all you do is drive the ball bearings into the racers. And what you'll end up with is pitted racers, really badly pitted racers. You'll just crush the bearings, basically. You want them to be able to move freely, so putting that much preload on it is crazy. You can hear the thing complaining. If you're ever doing engineering or mechanic work or anything, it's a really basic thing to listen to what you're tightening. If it's making a sound like that, you're probably doing nothing more than stretching the bolt. Look at that. Can you hear it complaining? Look at all the corrosion popping out the top.
Complete. You need to retighten
that is
your
complete.
Two stem bolts, straighten your steering, and connect them.
And that will be very stiff. The handlebars are going to be stiff. It's going to just wreak havoc with the bearings. You basically ruin the brand new bearings you put in there. That is way too tight. And he just keeps going. I cannot understand an engineer. I really can't. My father's an engineer. He would never do that. I want to get his opinion on this, actually. I think I might send this video to my dad and see what he thinks. My dad's an experienced engineer, robotics engineer for many years.
That's complete. You need to retighten your two stem bolts, straighten your steering, and connect the brakes. So that's it. That's this.
Say that again. Come again. That's complete. Okay, that's done. Now you need to tighten your bolts, stem bolts, and then try straightening your steering. Some of you will have spotted the obvious mistake. Let's go again.
That's complete. You need to retighten your two stem bolts, straighten your steering, and connect the brakes.
Right, if you tighten your stem bolts, you won't be straightening your steering because you will have locked the stem in place. Brilliant. So, there you go. That is how an engineer, and still, I'm still... The jury's open on that one. I know enough engineers to wonder about that. I don't know what kind of engineer he is, but I know engineers, and I don't know... This is the thing. From a very young age as a kid, I grew up around engineers. I grew up around guys in factories a lot. I would go accompany my dad on business trips all the time to go fix machines and robots. I'm well used to standing in freezing factories wearing boiler suits, climbing under dirty machinery. I was basically a child labourer. I can't imagine my dad not greasing something, or not talking something to the correct talk, or whacking something with a mallet like that. That was really bad. That was so bad. It's worse than guys on YouTube who I've watched who have no qualifications at all. That's shocking. Why on earth didn't he use any grease? Let's go have a look at the comments, because I haven't really perused the comments. Some clarity, the reason I don't use grease is because in this application, grease will attack the carbon or trap dirt and water. The grease will trap the water? Oh, and that might lead to rusting, I guess, so better to leave everything ungreased but that's what you did last time and everything rusted. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. This bearing will never do one rotation in its entire life and is already pre-greased internally. Well, that's true, but that doesn't have any effect whatsoever on where the bearing is going to sit in the cup. Just because the bearing's got grease inside it internally doesn't mean greasing the exterior isn't a good idea. I mean, I tend to grease the exterior of the seals of the bearing as well, because if you notice in that video, there was still rust inside the bearing, even though it was greased previously. So water does get in, so what you need to do is prevent the water from getting in. The reason I talk with feel is a torque wrench is highly inaccurate on any threads which have corrosion. Maybe replace the bolts? What? That is one of the dumbest justifications for not using the torque wrench. Are you suggesting you don't use a torque wrench for any of the stem bolts? If they're corroded, replace them. And this idea that grease will attack the carbon, that's not true as far as I'm aware. I actually have another video here, which is carbon myths.
Let's do away with a couple of popular myths about carbon fiber, like the one that says that you can't put grease on it. It's a myth. If you have a bare carbon fiber headset cup, you can use normal grease if you want. Same goes for seat posts and bottom brackets. If you don't need carbon grip paste, grease will do no harm.
There you go. You got it there from a mechanic who's got a very nice professional looking setup there with all the part tools. Grease will do your bike no harm. Certainly not carbon fiber. I've been greasing carbon fiber headsets for donkey's years. Never had a problem. People are calling him up on his lack of grease and torque wrench. But you guys, what do you guys think? Good or bad video? Did he do a great job to a high engineering standard? Any suggestions of where he could have done it better? Did he do it perfectly? Comments below. Watching, folks. As always, when you're out riding, do stay safe, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye.